Okay. Well, we should be starting with the issue of affordability and what do you want to see happening? What kind of policies do you want to implement in that regard?
So, affordability is one of the most important issues facing pretty much everyone in this
Yeah.
area. Um, so the reason that we are in an affordability crisis is because of the spike in inflation that we went through. And
Yeah.
the inflation was a result of COVID. So COVID happened under Trump's watch. We had a supply chain shock that caused inflation, which ended up showing up years, or I think it was a year or 2 years later under Biden's administration. Inflation
Yeah.
got to 9%. They brought it down. But the problem with this inflation is when you have a spike in inflation and you get it back under control, prices don't decrease back to the level that they were at. When you have
Yeah.
inflation under control, they basically stay elevated and rise at a small rate. So we've gone through a bout of inflation and wages have not kept pace. So we have a lot of people that are working paycheck to paycheck before, go through inflation, and now can't afford, rent, food,
Yeah.
healthcare,
Basic
daycare,
needs.
and basic needs. And that's where we're at now. And on top of that, in this area, we also have a lack of affordable housing. We are east of Los Angeles. Los Angeles has seen a spike in the cost of houses or the prices of houses, which is also filtered over here into the Inland Empire. Um, and what we've seen in as a result after the COVID pandemic, we saw a lot of corporations buying up houses. So now, in
Yeah.
addition to the fact that wages haven't kept pace, we don't have a supply of houses that are affordable that people in this area can purchase. So that's where we're at. So in order to bring the area back into affordability for people, we have to raise wages. We have to give people a living wage. That's the only way we can do it. And in addition to that, what we've seen specifically here in California and in other parts of the country is we have a income inequality gap that is huge
Yeah.
and unsustainable at this point. And that's exasperated by that one big disastrous bill that the Trump administration put in. So now we're in a situation where working families cannot afford the necessities that they need. So what we need to do is turn around that income inequality gap. There was a study put out by the Economic Policy Institute that basically showed that the decline in union membership over the last couple of decades was a mirror image of the amount of money going to the top 10% in this country.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, unions are some of the only organizations that are really there to protect people. So in order to turn this income inequality gap around, we have to turn that decline in union membership around. So we need to strengthen unions, we need to strengthen collective bargaining, and we need to make sure that there is union representation for the vast majority of people in this area. And them fighting for a living wage and benefits, healthcare, and so forth will help start turning around that income inequality gap. So
Yeah.
that's really important. In addition to that, we need to make sure that we are increasing the supply of affordable housing, right? One of the reasons that is so expensive is because of the lack of supply. So we need to incentivize builders to build affordable housing here in the Inland Empire, so that people will be able to live in the communities they work. Because what you see a lot of times is people will work in this area, but they have to, drive from, someplace that's far because that's the only place that they can afford a house. So
Yeah.
we need to increase the amount of affordable housing here in the Inland Empire also. And that's some of the ways that we start turning things around and putting, affordability, we turning around the affordability crisis and turning it into something that people can actually live here in the Inland Empire.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned unions and workers' rights, and I think that is very important. I know you have like it's an act from the 1940s that I don't remember exactly right now what was the name, that
Mm-hmm.
avoids you can take part in mass strikes, for example. I don't know
Yeah.
if if that that is one of the um this this act is one of the things that you would like to see abolished in order to to give unions a better way to protect workers.
Well, what we have is there are certain states that have right to work laws, which
Yeah,
is basically the opposite of what it sounds. It actually takes
yeah,
away their right to collective bargaining. Luckily, here in California, we're not a one of those states. We allow collective
all right,
bargaining. We allow workers to organize. We allow workers to strike. The one of the problems I see is that there are certain laws that are on the books that allow people to collective bargain, allow people to organize, to form unions. The problem is that the penalties for breaking some of those laws, some of the corporations breaking those laws, there's no real penalty behind them. So what
yeah,
happens is for example, in the Starbucks case, when people want to form a union in Starbucks, Starbucks is doing everything they can to prevent that, even breaking some of those laws. But again, there's no penalties behind them. So what we really need to do in order to strengthen collective bargaining is making sure that if you're violating some of those laws, that there's actual penalties behind them so that it
yeah,
incentivizes
yeah,
corporations to not break those laws. And those laws also deal with wage theft, right? So we have corporations that will use excuses for not paying workers, and the penalties behind that are not stringent enough. And so companies keep doing it. And so we need to strengthen the penalties behind some of these collective bargaining laws so that they are actually enforced and
yeah.
followed.
Yeah, when the sanctions are, are very small for these big corporations, they just think that, committing a breaking the law is, better for them than actually following the following the rules. So
Exactly.
you were speaking about housing and affordable housing and the spike of inflation, cost of living crisis, and affordability crisis. How is that making an impact on the social on the social levels of how the people are um, living right now? How is that making a real impact on local communities?
When I talk to people, what's happening is they're actually just foregoing things, right? People can't afford health insurance because if they pay for their health insurance, they're not able to pay for their rent or food. So
Yeah,
what's happening is people are not doing the things that they need. They're not buying the things that they want. And so they're just foregoing services. And then, in extreme cases, what's happening also is that someone who was living on their own, with a family has to move back in with their parents because they just can't afford to live on their own. And in addition, you know, um, people who have children who are trying to, do a career, they can't afford health care. I mean, I'm sorry, they can't afford daycare. So they'll also rely on their parents for daycare. And so we've seen a lot of people downscaling. I know in this area, in addition to the fact that people can't afford some of the necessities, daily necessities, they're also afraid to go out and purchase them because of the ICE raids and
Yeah,
DHS and what the federal government is doing here. So what you'll see in this area is a lot of food, clothing, and necessity drives. I know on every Wednesday, in Riverside, I work with a company, an organization called Project Food that feeds people who have food insecurities every Wednesday evening. And that's important. And in addition to that, we also have clothes there that's donated. So people who are coming in to get a free meal can also get clothes. In addition
yeah,
to that, they also provide medical services, I think twice a month, for people who can't afford to see a doctor. So we do have organizations that are stepping up to try to fill the gap. There are a lot of food and clothing drives here in this area, but we shouldn't have to rely on that. We're spending
yeah,
$1 billion a day bombing Iran for no reason. We should be able to feed and clothe the people in our own community.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think you shouldn't be doing this. I mean, local communities shouldn't be the ones having to, to provide these things for their families and neighbors. This is part of the things that the federal government and the states and all the authorities should be doing instead of, putting the pressure on the people to have to, so they have to to do that. Now one of
But
the
also, just
what
further to that point, though, if we structure a society where people can afford those necessities on
yeah,
their own with one job, that would be even great, that we wouldn't have to rely on the federal government. People would be able to earn
yeah,
enough money to support themselves. That would be ideal. But in the absence of that, given what we have going on right now, the government really needs to step in and help these people until we can get to a point where people can
yeah,
sustain themselves.
yeah, that's right. Well, you also mentioned the impact of the ice rates, and I want to mention that because it's one of the main things that I've been focusing on other different interviews I've been having with different candidates across LA. So I want to know how this ice operations are affecting your area.
They are affecting our area, not as much as what we've seen happen in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah,
Los Angeles became a very critical situation, and bringing in the Marines and other federal agencies was
yeah,
unnecessary and just heightened the problem. And before the federal government, DHS, and ICE started raiding our areas, our communities here in Southern California, we didn't have a problem. We did not have any problem until they started raiding. Now you have communities that are living in fear. And, we do have raids happening here in the Inland Empire. And luckily, we have a good network of people, again, the community stepping up. So there are hotline numbers that if people see ICE activity, community members will show up, to make
yeah,
sure that things aren't being done that are unlawful. Um, in here in California, we passed two laws recently, which will help. One is requiring agents to not wear masks or not wear face
yeah,
coverings, and number two, to identify themselves with badges and provide their names when asked. The other bill that was passed and recently signed by Gavin Newsom is a bill that allows people to sue federal agencies for violations of their constitutional rights. So if ICE is kicking in your doors and they do not have a judicial warrant, you can now turn around and sue the agents that carried that out. So
Yeah.
that also gives a way for the community to hold the federal government accountable, and it also hopefully will deter the federal government and federal agents from actually breaking laws that are on the books.
Do they follow these laws? I mean, the ICE agents, or
Well,
they
these I haven't. I don't. We're going to have to see how it pans out. We
yeah,
don't know yet. I still believe that they're wearing the face coverings here. I don't know of any specific case that has come against any of the agents yet. But I do know also that local police force is showing up when ICE is present and making sure that they're also following
all
the
right.
rules. And I will say, we have had a large community turnout here in the Inland Empire for ICE activity. And it seems like, and I don't have numbers on this, but it appears like it has deterred a lot of the most egregious,
Yeah,
overreaches from ICE. So at least from that perspective, it looks like those are working.
yeah, yeah. I've been hearing that, the most aggressive rates are are not keeping on, they're not continuing with those actions. um they're still there, of course.
Yeah.
One of the other issues, if we're talking about constitutional rights, we have to talk about voting rights, which is something that you've mentioned that is very important to your campaign. So if you can tell me more about that, it would be nice.
Sure. So one of the reasons why we have such good, secure elections in the United States is that the states administer them, right?
Yeah,
So, ultimate power in the country, which is the presidency, does not administer these elections. They're administered on the state level. That means 50 different agencies are administering elections. So, if you were to try to hijack the election, you would have to, take over all 50 election authorities. And that seems like what the Trump administration is trying to do now.
yeah,
But in the Constitution, Article 1, the very first article of the Constitution, Section 4, gives the right to administer elections solely to the states. And that's something that we must protect. Um, we've seen a lot of different tactics already. We're in April, and this
yeah,
federal government has already tried a number of tactics to rig the elections. One, Trump asked Texas to redistrict to give him more Republican seats.
yeah,
California responded. We stood up and we responded to that. And we said, if you're going to do that, we're going to even it back out. Then now we have this SAVED Act, which is coming through Congress. And
yeah,
again, it has nothing to do with making sure that elections are secure, because the elections are secure. The Heritage
yeah,
Foundation has a database of all election fraud cases, and for ones where someone who was not supposed to vote voted, there are less than 15 cases over decades. So it's basically non-existent. And what you're going to see is, if the SAVE Act passes, it would be disastrous. And the whole intent of the SAVE Act is to make it harder for people to vote. Your driver's license is not good enough as a voting mechanism. You need to get a passport or some kind of federal government. Um,
which is expensive,
they
by the way.
which is expensive. People who are overseas can't easily do it. They have to go to the consulate. In
Yeah,
addition, what they want to do is, and the follow on to that is if you want to register to vote now, currently you can do it at the DMV. There's a lot of different places you can do it. You can register by mail. Now you actually have to go, you would have to go in and show documentation. Again, it would have to be, a birth certificate or some kind of official government ID. And in addition to that, they want the states to share their election information with the federal government. And on
Yeah.
top of that, they want states to proactively purge voter rolls. So they want to determine who they feel is not eligible to vote and have them purged or removed from the voter rolls before the election. And that's just not how we do things here, right? The point of democracy is empowering as many people to vote as possible. As it is, we have less than half the population voting in every election. We need more people engaged, and requiring these hurdles to vote is not helpful. And again, the reason that they're doing it is because Trump knows he's going to lose the midterm elections. And so he feels if he can prevent people from voting, that they can, get their people to vote and ensure him only in the election. And that's not how democracy works. It's not what America was
Yeah.
founded on, and it's against everything that we stand for. So it's important because, this is the first election that I'm on the ballot, right? And I do not want Donald Trump counting those votes. In addition to that, let's also talk about the fact that we never had a problem in the United States with voter fraud until Donald Trump lost an election and then made it up. He
Yeah.
tried to litigate this in court. I believe it was over 60 court cases he lost because there was no voter fraud. But yet he cries about it every day with no evidence. Donald, if you think there is voter fraud, please provide us the evidence. If not, be quiet and let America run its elections like it always has.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And I've been hearing, I don't know if it's happening in your if you know this, but I've been hearing, I don't know who said that to me, that they were trying to forbid some sort of IDs that certain people, particularly Black and brown communities, have, like, to prevent those people from voting, which is against civil rights protections as well. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I haven't heard specifically about that, but I do know that one of the reasons why they don't want states to use the driver's license is because there are states that will give a driver's license to someone who is not a citizen. And again, the reason for that
Yeah.
is, I know we did it here in California. The reason for that is mostly for insurance. If you get into an accident with someone, you need to have some kind of driver's license that you can then,
Yeah.
work with either the insurance company or whatever to get that result. But those IDs do not allow people who are not citizens of the United States to vote. Just because you have that driver's license, if you go to vote with that driver's license, your name will not be on the voter rolls, and you will not be able to vote. And
Yeah.
so it's one of these things where there's they're using something that's not really based in facts to try to prevent. Again, like you said, the goal is to prevent brown and Black people from voting, right? And so that's
Yeah.
why they're doing it. But if you're Black or you're Hispanic and you are a citizen of this country, you should be able to vote just like every other citizen. And in
Yeah, of
addition,
course.
right, if if you're a woman and you get married and you change your last name to your husband's, now you would also not be able to vote unless you go through the extra steps of getting a new passport to vote, which might not be
Yeah.
feasible for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, everything seems to be. But how are they? What are the arguments they are giving? Because if there is no evidence of voter fraud, how are they making up this things to, in order to support this Save America Act?
Well, they're just saying it. Donald Trump from the day he lost the
Yeah,
election says that there was voter fraud. He never once has provided evidence. Now they're saying there's just the continuation of that same lie. And one thing that you can always count on with certainty from the Trump administration is that they will lie. And so
yeah,
they
should have
are
guessed
just
that.
lying. Yeah, and the thing is that people believe them, right? And so what happens is Trump creates the lie, Mike Johnson perpetuates it, and then all his followers make up excuses to justify the lie. And that seems to be what we're dealing with right now. And when you think about it, we're really in a 1984 George Orwellian situation. Believe what we tell you and not what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears. And so
Yeah,
we, who believe in democracy, who believe in truth, need to stand up and talk out about it and make sure that their lies are not perpetuated.
yeah. Have you been taking part in No Kings demonstrations or rallies?
Yes. So this is our third No Kings. I think it's great. I want to say to the public, first and foremost, I was not paid to be there. I did not get a check from George Soros. None of the people that I talked to were paid to be there. This is really a reaction to this administration. And so people
Yeah,
are showing up and protesting because of this administration. And the Republicans and Trump have absolutely nothing to say against it. So they make up yet another lie saying that we're all paid to be there. We're not all paid to be there. We're
like in
taking our own
Minnesota, the
time.
same argument. Like in Minnesota, people were paid to be there supporting their community after the ICE killed Renee Good and Alex Peretti. They
Right.
said the same
Because
thing.
they have nothing else to say.
Yeah,
You have the largest majority of Americans protesting a single administration.
yeah,
That is damning, right? But one of the differences we have here in America with other countries is that we will show up on one day and protest. And we've done it 3 times for No Kings. And I heard someone in a French interview from France say that the difference between Americans and the French is that when we protest, when the French protest, they show up and they will protest every single day until they get what they want. Here in America, we
yeah,
show up for one day. So I think the numbers of people that are participating in No Kings have definitely reached that magic 3.5% of the population that's needed to topple a regime. The problem is we only do it on one day. But
yeah,
it also is important to do it anyways because it shows Americans that America does not believe in this administration. They do not support this administration. And then it shows other countries also, hey, we know you guys are dealing with this, but we here in America do not approve of this in large numbers. And I think it's important to show everybody that. And so these No Kings rallies are very important.
yeah, yeah. I think the same way. I think it's very important that you show up and you defend your basic rights, the basic rights that you've built, the working communities have been building for many decades.
Yeah, and,
So
and going on what you just said, I
yeah,
think the most important thing you can do as an American is vote. The second most important thing you can do as American is protest injustice and things you don't like, right? That is the First Amendment of the
The First Amendment.
Constitution, which the Trump administration is trying very hard to take away. But we have a right to criticize our leaders. We have actually an obligation to criticize our leaders when they do things that we don't want. And so it is very important that as Americans that we always stand up and exercise our First Amendment rights.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, I think we've covered every single topic. So thank you very much.
Always good to talk to you. Thank you again. And I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.